Greetings, brothers and sisters. I hope I find you well today. I'm your host, Melusi Ndlalambi, and this is the podcast on the go. If you have not yet subscribed or you've liked this channel, I encourage you to do that just now. It won't cost you a cent. You won't be charged anything, but you will become part of a global family of like-minded people who are seeking for nothing but the truth to prepare us for the coming of Jesus Christ. And on this podcast, we talk about anything and anyone on any subject matter. And this week we're continuing a series that God has providentially provided for such a time as this, with none other but our beloved pastor, Pastor Modiri. He's sharing with us the Trojan horse attacked from within. Greetings, Mfundis. How are you?
Greetings to you. I'm fine. And how are you?
Very well, thanks.
Thank you.
What a privilege God has given us to be with you on this set for such a time as this.
Yeah, I call it a privilege for me.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
that I should be with you guys.
Your pen is still dancing.
Oh yeah, it is. It'll continue doing. It'll continue doing that.
Oh man, I thank God for people like you who think and who write their thoughts and are prepared to put them out there for people to watch and to listen. And here we are doing a podcast. When you started your ministry 40 years ago, did you ever think you would be on podcast? Was there anything called podcast?
No, there wasn't. There wasn't. Yeah, some of us were born BC, before computers and before all this stuff.
Yes.
So, but here we are. We're using technology to spread the word.
Absolutely.
And I think it's great.
Yeah.
I
So
think it's great.
We said before, and we talked about the Trojan horse attacked from within.
Yeah.
And you made a case that there's a problem in the church.
Yeah.
Do you want to remind us exactly what your mind is thinking right now when we say Trojan horse vis-a-vis the subject matter we're talking about today?
Yeah. Look, again, continuing with the theme of Trojan horse.
Yeah.
What we basically mean is there's something going on that is not right inside the church, right? And we need to talk about some of the things that are going on in the church.
Yeah.
But there seems to be some insurgency that is inside the church, and it manifests itself in many ways and in diverse ways in the church.
Yes.
And I think we need to be true to ourselves and honest to ourselves and acknowledge that there's a challenge and that we need to talk about this stuff.
Yes.
All right, and not be afraid.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, you have decided to extend the first article you wrote. And you were telling me offset the other time that you've got a couple of areas you really want to focus on.
Yeah.
Because this Trojan horse in attack from within manifests itself in various areas.
Correct.
Today I want us to talk about music. I think that's one of the part 2 you've written.
Correct.
But what other areas can we look forward to?
Many. Look, we can talk. We're going to talk about a worship, for instance.
Okay.
We've been Trojan horsed so far as worship is concerned. We're going to talk about the preachment, the content of the preachment from our pulpits. We are going to talk about that. We are going to talk about the dress code, for instance.
Okay.
We are going to talk about genderism in the church. We are going to talk about egalitarianism. I know these are big words, but once we get into them, we're going to find out that they are easy to understand.
Yes.
But these are some of the things that we are actually going to be talking about. Yeah.
Now, I read part 2.
Yes.
We're going to make this available to our viewers out there because this podcast definitely won't really cover all of the issues you highlighted in that article. But when I read it, I heard you talk about, even from part 1 to this part, suppression of critical views in our thinking and our theology.
Yeah.
You were talking about standards.
Yeah.
I still remember your example on Kaiser Chiefs.
Yeah.
That trended a
Very
little
powerful.
bit, and I think it got the message home.
Yeah. A lot of people, by the way, called me about that.
Yeah.
They said that was a powerful illustration,
Exactly.
and it makes them understand what the argument is all about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you talked about, now you wrote this and talked about standards in music. So picking up that same thought of the uniform, that doesn't really win the match, but it helps to identify identity. You're saying the church also must have an identity in music. Give me your highlights on what that really means.
Yeah. Look, my point is not that the church must have a standard.
Okay.
My point is the church has a standard.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not advocating for something new.
All right. And
I'm not coming up with anything new. If you've been an Adventist for quite some time,
yes,
then you'd know that the church already has a standard. And you will remember from the first podcast,
yes,
that I said, there's no need to invent new things as we move on in this church.
Okay.
The church has been in existence for quite a long time,
yes,
decades. It already has standards. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. So my point is not that we should have it. My point is that it's there. We just need to be true to it.
Wow. Now, let's look at if I was a lawyer, I would say the heads of the arguments.
Yeah.
What are the highlights of the arguments you're making? You are saying that the church has a right to establish or has already established its standards on music and singing. And I hear you very clearly. You're not calling for something new. You are saying the church already has a standard.
Yeah. And also the church has a right to do that. You see, there are two things in that argument. The first thing is that the church has a standard. And this answers the people who say there's no standard. And I'm saying, just in case you're not aware, there is a standard.
Yes.
And then the second thing is the church has a right to have a standard. And this answers those people who say we don't need a standard. The church doesn't need to have a standard.
Yeah. But Mfundisi, on that, I've listened to the people. They're saying standard, yes, but whose standard and from where? Well,
we will see as we go on. All right, that the standard of the church is predicated on principles. Okay. All right, certain principles that are derived from the Bible.
Yes.
Okay. And I think it will become clearer as we speak. But right here, we need to set something clear. We should make something very clear. When people say whose standard, the church's standard. That's whose standard? The church's standard. Because if you're going to challenge the church's prerogative to have a standard, you are actually setting a standard. And we can also ask a question, then whose standard is that?
In fact,
there should not be a standard. Whose standard is that?
So which one are you bringing?
Whose standard is it?
So here is the argument I've seen doing rounds. There's a big word. If you go into the world, you hear it. If you come into the church, you hear it. And I wonder whether that's not an agenda for Trojan horsing. Decolonialization of our faith. Africans are talking a lot about decolonizing our faith. So in a sense, people are saying the standard we are saying is the standard actually comes from the West. It's not African.
I think we will unpack that.
But you hear where they are coming from.
I do understand, but I think let me respond to this decolonization thing. I mean, this is a buzzword. Wherever you go, people are saying we need to decolonize. Decolonize. And the question I'm asking is, what are you decolonizing? Besides, what are you decolonizing? Are you decolonizing Christian religion, or are you decolonizing Christianity? And I think people are confused when it comes to that. Because point number one, you can't decolonize Christianity. because Christianity can never be colonized.
Okay.
It's impossible to colonize Christianity if you understand what Christianity is. I think what people are talking about is decolonizing Christian religion.
Okay.
So there's a difference between Christian religion and Christianity. Now the point is, if you're going to decolonize a Christian religion
and its standards,
what are you decolonizing it from, and what are you
decolonizing it to
decolonizing it to
become?
Yeah. I've had an argument with somebody who is pushing this agenda, and I've said, listen, to the extent that you want to de-Westernize and de-Europeanize religion in Africa, I will agree with you.
Okay.
But that is if you will be able to stop there. But the problem is that you can't stop there.
Okay, you will have to bring in something.
You'll have to bring in something.
To replace
and that is
what you have removed.
Exactly. And that is the Africanization of religion. And my question is...
Which is neo-paganism.
Yeah. My question is, what's better? If you're going to say we are de-Westernizing but we are Africanizing in the context of Christian religion, my question is, what's the difference?
All right.
All right? Because for me, it's like you're exchanging one bad thing for another bad thing.
Polished bad thing, maybe, or familiar.
So for me, if we are going to call ourselves Christians, then Christians can never be Westernized.
Okay.
But Christians can never be Africanized either.
There's a universal standard that defines
Christianity transcends all these isms.
Wow, that's powerful.
It transcends all these isms. So you are not making it any better.
So
you're not bringing anything better by
actually,
saying now we must de-Westernize but Africanize.
Could that be actually another Trojan horse coming in?
Of course it is. Of course it is.
To make it look like it's nice to call it African.
And maybe now that we're talking about it, I must write about this nonsense about Africanizing
Christianity. Yes.
All
Africanity, right? As we call it.
Yeah. Maybe one needs to write about that.
It can never be.
You can never, ever do that with Christianity. Christianity transcends all the isms. All of them. Be it Westernism, be it Europeanism, be it Africanism, be it whatever ism. And I can tell you also, it transcends even the isms within the Christian religion. And by that I mean denominationalism, meaning it transcends Catholicism, it transcends Baptism, Methodism, but guess what? It transcends Adventism too.
Wow.
Christianity is above all these isms. So it's absolutely nonsensical to say we must de-Westernize, we must decolonize, but then Africanize.
Yeah.
But this doesn't mean we can't be Christians in an African context.
Okay.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
But we can talk about that at the time we talk about this.
Yes, but let's drill a little bit deeper onto the aspects of Christian music. I'm not even running away from another ism, Adventist music, because someone said there's nothing called Adventist music because most of our songs we borrowed them from other people.
Yeah, but not even for that reason, by the way, because that reason also that just doesn't make sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah. When we talk about songs that praise God, when we talk about songs that give glory to God, that songs which recognize what God has done for us, and we sing out of joyful appreciation for what God, you can never ever call that African music or European music or American music. You can never do that.
That's true.
You can never ever
because
do that.
I've heard people...
And neither can you call that Adventist music or Methodist music or Catholic music or this music. Now that tells you that some of these arguments that seem to appear smart, when you sit down and analyze them, are not that smart after all.
No, we're just trying
They
to
are not smart after
identify
all.
labels that are
No.
not there. So you
Yes.
talk about a number of things here, which I would like us to unpack maybe one by one. You talk about church music needing to be creative, passionate, powerful, and even jubilant, like you're saying now, praising God.
Yes.
And I've heard people who watch some of our music videos on MelVee, and you can hear people commenting saying, I can't hear the lyrics or the words, but this music speaks to me.
Yeah.
So talk to us about creativity in music. What are we looking at?
Well, number one, it's not me who says that, by the way. You find these principles in the church manual.
Yeah.
They are there. So I'm not creating anything new.
All right.
That music must be creative. It must be passionate.
Yeah.
It must be jubilant.
It must be powerful.
It must be powerful.
Yeah.
It must glorify God.
Yes, harmonious and
It must
all
be
of that.
harmonious and all that. I've not come up with those things. I've not
Okay.
invented those principles. Those principles are in the church manual.
Yeah.
All
you
right.
know, policy documents.
Exactly. So basically, what that means is God has given us talents. All right. And these talents manifest themselves in many ways. And so you've got people with musical talents.
Yeah.
And God wants those talents to be used to his glory.
Okay.
And there are people that can be very creative in terms of composing songs, in terms of arranging songs, rearranging them, contextualizing them. That's what creativity means, right? And being passionate about it. Being passionate basically reflects what you feel. All right? You do not sing to feel. You sing because you feel.
Okay.
All
It
right?
comes from somewhere.
It comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
And you will see in the documents, that's what I'm arguing. I'm arguing against people who say we sing so that we can be happy. And people have a problem with us being happy when we sing. And I'm saying we don't sing to be happy. We sing because we are.
we are happy.
Because we are already happy. So music doesn't generate
The happiness.
and that whole hullabaloo you always see people do. No, that's not the reason why we sing. We sing because we feel, and by the way, I'm even arguing against the word happy.
Okay.
The Bible never uses the word happy. We sing because
We're joyful. Yeah.
And joy is the fruit of the Spirit. It's a state of being. It's not a feeling that is engendered by some experience.
Okay.
You feel joy at all times, and we sing because of that. So these principles speak to the kind of music or how we should sing, how we should sing.
Okay.
In church.
I guess it's the how. That's a big question.
Yes.
I think you've opened up a can of worms on that one.
Right.
How?
Right.
Because people then bring in this idea of saying, but my taste, I feel more close to God when I sing hip hop, or when I sing stratamia, or when I sing choral. Creativity and tastes of music, how do we balance that in worship? Because people seem to say these songs are Western, they're not bringing out the Africanness in me.
Now you see, what you're speaking to is what. For now, we're speaking about how.
The how.
So it doesn't matter what music you sing.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. You can sing skatamia if you want to sing skatamia. You can sing reggae if you want to sing reggae.
Reggae, yeah.
You can sing whatever you want to sing. That's fine. The issue is how, in the presence of God. I think that's what the issue is.
Right.
But of course, we are going to talk about genres later on.
Yes.
But right now, we are still talking about how.
How. Okay.
It's how you carry yourself in the presence.
As you do it.
In the presence of God.
Okay.
And I think that's where the whole issue is. And you will see when we talk about, in the article, when you read the article, when the article talks about how singing should not be, among other things, it says, I'm arguing, and I'm deriving this from the principles that I found in the church manual, in the words of Ellen White, that singing must not be theatrical,
All right.
must not be worldly,
Okay.
must not be showy.
Entertainment.
It must not be, it may be entertaining, whatever we mean by entertaining, by the way, because we might have to define that.
Yeah.
But the issue is, it must not be centered on self. You are not singing to and for yourself. All right? So now those principles speak to the how. The understanding.
Yeah.
Who are you singing to? Why are you singing? Who are you glorifying? And in whose presence are you singing? You see, the problem is sometimes when you look at what is happening in church, people tend to forget that while they are singing for the audience, they are actually singing in the presence
Of God.
of God.
Yeah. So the attention must not be on me.
No.
And now there is this celebrity culture where
And you know, before I cut you, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
before I cut you,
Yeah.
I remember something very important.
Yeah.
There's a brilliant musician in this church, a composer, an arranger and a rearranger.
Yeah.
Beautiful, a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Been singing with him for many years. Pastor Sioketsa.
Oh yes, I know him.
Beautiful musician. I once asked him a question many years ago.
Yeah.
When I realized that actually music in this church is drifting towards a particular trend.
Yeah. Which is very secular.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about that later on.
Yeah.
So I asked him, I said, tell me, man, why are your compositions and your arrangements and your rearrangements not in the line of what I'm seeing? You know, popular
Yeah.
arrangements, popular compositions and stuff like that. He gave me a very brilliant answer,
Okay.
which I've never forgotten. And I must have asked him this question probably more than 20 years ago.
Okay.
And he said to me, when I sit down to compose a song, when I sit down to arrange a song, I don't have myself in mind.
Wow.
I have God in mind.
Wow.
And how this music is going to impact the relationship of the listeners
With him.
with God.
Wow.
Never forgot that.
Wow.
Brilliant answer.
I wonder-
I wish musicians
Yes.
can have that in mind
As they sing as well.
as they sing, not only as they compose, but as they sing as well.
In front of the church.
Exactly.
Now, you say it must be passionate. So we're touching a very, perhaps I would say, sensitive area, because passion is expressed differently by people.
Yes,
Passion is that which drives you to want to do something.
correct.
And it's that thing that carries you to do something even when it doesn't make sense for you to do it. That's passion. Passion comes from that part of you that says, I will not give up. I will do this because it is the right thing. And you're saying music must be like that. It's like you're saying, seeing when you're happy, seeing when the days are dark, seeing when things don't make sense. Music must be part of your experience. But what do you mean by passionate?
I mean, it must come from the heart. That's as simple as all that. It must not just come from the head. It must come from the heart. It must come from here. All right? That's doing it passionately. But that does not mean that it must be unruly.
Okay.
It must just be anyhow. You can be passionate about something and still be dignified
Yeah.
when you do it.
All right.
All right?
All right. Mhm.
Yes. And that's what I mean. So passionate doesn't mean that do as you please, jump around, be in a trance of some kind and chant
Yeah.
and do all these things that we see now in church. That's not what it means to be passionate about something.
Yeah.
It simply means it must come deep from the heart. And it must show the appreciation for what God has done
Yeah.
for you.
I like the word from the heart and dignified,
Correct.
because some of the styles I'm seeing nowadays, they don't speak to dignity.
Yeah.
But then you say it must also be powerful.
Oh, yeah.
In what sense is music said to be powerful?
Well, actually, Ellen White says, when she explains that, she says, we must sing out very powerfully. without any restrictions in terms of singing out. It must be also powerful. Powerful means the progression of the music.
It must go up into a crescendo.
Oh yes.
It must lift us up to a higher ground.
Your music must not be monotonous.
Yeah.
Yeah. It must be varied. It must be dynamic.
Okay.
Yes, that's powerful. It must evoke emotions.
So it must make someone move.
It must evoke emotions. And when we tell people music in church must be dignified, they tend to think that we say music must be emotionless.
Okay, tone it down, turn it off.
And that's not what we mean. That's not what we mean.
Yeah.
We simply mean remember who you sing for.
Yeah.
And in whose presence you sing.
Yes.
Because there are certain things, let me tell you, there are certain things
Yeah.
you don't do in the presence of God.
Yeah.
Or even a human father.
Yes.
Even a human king.
Yeah.
There are certain things you just don't do.
Very true.
All right? So
There's protocol there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all we're saying is remember that it is to God that you're singing and it is in his presence. So music must be passionate, it must be creative, it must be powerful, but the dignity must still be there. Yes.
Now, this one may mess up a lot of people, because one of the standards or principles you are applying here is that music must be jubilant. Jubilant simply means happy.
Yeah,
joyful.
of course.
And that when we sing, especially we're talking in the context of church, it must not sound like a funeral.
Yes.
But if you bring this to the Africans, jubilant means one thing. Maybe the most common thing to show that you're jubilant is getting up and dancing.
Yeah. All right. But like I said, I mean, music must evoke emotions. All right. You either cry, you either show expressions of gladness, and you can show that by the movement of your body and the type of thing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But if you read the article, and I hope we will get to that.
Yes.
If you read the article is not against these things.
Okay.
Jubilance,
Dancing
and the type of thing.
yeah.
The article talks more about a principle that must supersede singing, or that must superintend singing and music in church. And that is the principle of sacred versus profane.
All right.
And I think
I'm going to get into that one. I don't want you to unpack it too much.
Okay, fine.
We're
All right.
going to get,
All right.
because when we then begin to define, and I like it because you did it in this article. You defined exactly what should be involved here. But maybe finish that point.
No. If we're going to get to it, then that's okay. Let me reserve it for that time.
Yeah.
But the point I was making is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what songs you sing.
Yeah.
Some songs will make you cry.
True.
Some songs will make you laugh.
True.
Some songs will make you want to move. Some songs will evoke different types of emotions.
Yes.
And we say that is right. And those emotions can be manifested differently according to different cultures.
True.
And there's nothing wrong with
And
that.
socialization, yes.
Absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
All right? And that is why you need a principle that transcends all these things that we've talked about to govern singing in church.
Yeah. I like it when you mention the fact that there is solemnity that comes with Christian music. It's not a party where you just rock up and there's protocol here. We're worshiping the sovereign God of the universe, and therefore that music must create a solemn environment.
Correct.
What do you mean by that?
No. What I mean is, and I've said it, and I'm going to repeat it, at the risk of repeating myself.
Repetition strengthens understanding. So.
Exactly. Look. When we worship God, when we come before God, we are coming to a Savior. We are coming to a being that saved us out of sin. And that alone generates feelings of jubilation, of happiness.
Yeah, you feel endeared to Him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
However, this God who saved us is the Lord of hosts, is a holy God, is a righteous God, is a God on whose throne fire, a river of fire
lightnings
that purifies, flows. Lightnings and thunder
is before Him.
Is before Him. We need to keep the two together.
In perspective all the time. Yeah.
He's a father who's friendly, but who's not a friend. My mother used to say, I'm friendly.
But I'm not your friend.
But I'm not your friend. I think we need to make that distinction.
Yes.
All right?
Yeah.
We need to make that distinction. Jesus is the Savior, but is the Lord
of Lords.
He's not only our Savior, He's our Lord. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about solemnity.
All right.
So there's jubilation, there's joy,
there's gladness and
all those things.
Yeah.
But we are before a holy God. We need to be solemn.
Yeah.
Tread softly in the temple, in the sanctuary, because we're walking before a holy God. That's very important.
Yeah, so you then talk about another principle here where you say congregational singing should be encouraged.
Yeah.
And if possible, instruments can be used if feasible.
Yes.
Why if feasible?
Because in certain circumstances, you don't have people that are gifted in that regard, where they can play music and stuff like that.
All right.
Play instruments. All right. So that's what I mean by if feasible. Where it is feasible, where you have space, you have the money to buy instruments, you should do that by all means.
Okay.
In a church environment, where you have people that can play, you can do that by all means.
But talk to us about this. But talk to us about this phenomenon where you're quite right. There are not many Adventists who can play instruments.
Yes.
I've seen a new phenomenon where churches are hiring non-Adventists to play those instruments.
Yeah.
Well, how does that leave us? Is it not a Trojan horse because they bring in foreign music styles and beats that are not in our hymn book?
You see, the problem is not the players in that regard. The problem is the church. Because if you hire somebody to give you a service, you tell him what service you want.
Okay.
You tell him you're paying for the service that you want.
Don't leave them to do
so
what
if he's going to come in there and play worldly music, that's the problem with the church, is not the problem. The problem of the player.
Yeah.
I think we need to make that very clear.
Yeah.
And I've seen beautiful musicians, instrumentalists, who are not Adventist, but they respect
the ethos and pathos of our music.
Exactly.
Congregational singing would mean what? How would it be? Chorus in front with people, or because that's the standard.
The congregation cannot be spectators. They've not come to a concert.
I like that.
They've come to church. They've come to worship.
Yeah.
So music. They must participate in music.
Okay.
You know, the bulk of singing in church must be
Congregational.
by the congregation.
But I've also seen a transition to this celebratory type of singing where, you know, when I grew up, I guess it's the changing of times. I don't know in your times when you grew up, because you're definitely much senior than me, there would always be one chorister in front.
Yeah.
Leading with a stick so that you
yeah.
can see the beats.
Yeah.
But nowadays we get all the 5, 6, 7 parts in front.
Yeah.
It's like a group that's singing, and they're very melodious. Sometimes I'm tempted to just shut up and listen to them because they sing so well.
That's true. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with that. All right. So you can. But they've got all the parts.
Yeah.
And they're guiding all the other parts that are in the congregation.
Yeah.
Which is very beautiful. But of course the temptation is then you sit back and by the way,
because sometimes in Buddhism, even if I sing,
yeah,
I can't hear myself because of the PA system.
But you see, again, that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem. The musicians in the church, the leaders in the church need to make sure that there's beautiful harmony and balancing between instruments and the singing.
Yes.
Because you cannot have instruments overwhelming the singing, I mean the voices in the church, the congregational singing.
Yeah.
And I've been to churches, some churches where you honestly do not hear the congregation sing.
Yeah.
Because instruments
it's just
are too
noise.
Yeah, instruments are too noisy.
It's a bedlam of noise. As
But
Ellen.
I've been to other churches where there's nice, beautiful balance, you know, and you appreciate it. But here's the point I wanted to make with respect to, you know, the people, the choristers, where you have all the parts there.
Yeah.
Sometimes they sing so beautifully. They actually do not sing even what the notes that are in the in the hymnal. And they've rearranged this thing as they were singing, and you feel like this is a special item.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I should just keep quiet and
listen. I'm spoiling the party.
So I think the choristers must tone it down a little bit. We really appreciate that.
Yeah.
But they need to remember that that's not a special item that they're
It's
giving.
a congregational.
We'll give them time for special item. This is congregational singing. So
that's very true.
To the extent that is possible, let them try and sing with the congregation and not try to out-sing
the congregation.
The congregation.
And that speaks to the point you were mentioning here, that it must be glorious, well presented and rehearsed, but
and harmonious.
It must be harmonious. That's the word I'm looking for.
Harmonious
to the point where whoever is singing along can harmonize and hear themselves, but also can understand, which is the other principle you mentioned.
Exactly. I mean, the Adventist church is known for a 4-part harmony. What are we known for that?
Yeah.
But of course, as we progress now, we've got 6-part harmony, we've got 7-part harmony, we've got 8-part harmony now, and that type of thing. That's beautiful. That's creative.
Yeah.
You know, the creativity you're talking about.
Yes.
All right. So harmony, being harmonious refers to, can we hear all the parts? You know, harmonizing.
The baritones, the tenors, the bass,
the contraltos, the sopranos, the mid-locks, you know, all, all those, the first, the second, all those things. Can we hear them?
And whoever has
harmony.
the melody, we want to hear them take the song.
That's what harmonious actually means. It would be really boring if all of us sang soprano. You know, I mean, it wouldn't make sense.
No, it wouldn't make sense. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we need to maintain that harmony.
Yes. Now, you mentioned here quite a number of other points, which I think in the future we'll get into. But I want us to take a break and then come back to really drill down into some of the principles that govern singing in the church.
Okay.
And so to our viewers, as we take this break, do remember to like, to comment, to subscribe. If you have a question, do drop it in the comments below. We'll definitely be happy to get back to you and answer these questions. God bless you and see you on the other side. Welcome back, family. I'm glad you're still with us. We continue with our discussion, the Trojan horse infiltrated from within. And today we are really dissecting the hot topic on the table, the elephant in the room, music. Now, Mfundis, continuing with our trend, you talk about music being universal, but we are different people. We are different cultures. We are different ethnicities, and definitely we don't like the same music. So how can the standard apply to everyone when we have our divergent interests, cultures, and backgrounds?
Yeah, it is true that we are a world church, and because we are a world church, we are culturally heterogeneous, right? We coming from different cultural backgrounds, but not only that, as individuals, we've got our own preferences when it comes to music.
That's true.
Not only that, we're different ethnic groups, tribal groups, and stuff like that. Now, that in itself, that in itself necessitates a principle, a standard that is above all these differences. Because you can imagine what confusion we will have if we should allow those different groups and those different preferences to be manifested in a worship environment. Take a local church environment where you say you love reggae, and I say I love jazz. Then this one says I love mpakanga. And then
you want to fuse all of that
and then
into
we start
church.
worshiping, and we say, now let's worship, guys. And then I come with my reggae, you come with your. Can you imagine the confusion? And that is why the principles that you find in the church manual are raising a standard that is above all this.
Okay.
And that standard, that principle is simply sacredness versus profanity.
Okay.
When it comes to music. All right? So sacredness versus profanity or secularity or secularism.
Yes.
When it comes to music, will transcend all these cultures. So what that implies is people can sing their cultural music if they want to sing their cultural music, whatever that cultural music is. All right? So Africans can sing their African culture. Westerners can sing their Western music. Indians can sing their Indian music. Nigerians can sing their Nigerian music, whatever. But what regulates all these is what you're singing, sacred or secular. Because that principle of sacred versus secular permeates all cultures.
All right.
Now. You have people who think that when you talk about music in church and you speak about it in terms of sacred versus secular, they think that sacred means Western and secular means anything that is non-Western.
Okay.
Particularly African. And that is not true. That is absolutely not true. The principle of sacred versus secular also regulates Western music. Regulates all cultures. Because even within an African culture, we know what is sacred and we know what is profane.
Yeah.
So even if we bring African music, that African music must still be sacred.
All right.
We still sing before God. Even if you bring, let's say, Nigerian music, or you bring a Zulu music, or you bring Ndebele music, or you bring whatever music. The issue is, in that context, is this sacred or is this secular? Is it profane?
All right.
That's the universal principle in church.
Yeah. Perhaps let's drill a little bit them from this so that we are clear when we say sacred and secular. What distinguishes them?
Well, a sacred means understanding that what you're doing, when we say something is sacred, it's done to the glory
Okay.
of God.
So God is always the
It's,
center.
it's acknowledging God as God,
Okay.
and that we owe our existence to Him. Sacred means we acknowledge the fact that what we do for God and in the name of God is devoid of the things of this world that are profane, right? And secular simply means worldly.
Yeah, away from God.
Away from God, worldliness. Some
Fleshy.
definitions of secular means
Yeah.
irreligious. But I'm not too comfortable with that, because actually secularism itself can
be religious.
Can be religious. Can
Yes.
be it's a religion.
Yeah.
All right. And religions can be secular. So I'm not too happy with that. It's inadequate.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, for ease of communication, we can adopt that definition and say secular means irreligious, or sacrilegious. I think it's even
Sacrilegious,
better.
yes.
All right,
Yeah.
profane. So when you contrast the two principles, you will realize that, or rather, two notions. You will realize that these notions permeate all cultures. All right, even in the African culture, we have sacred things. We have worldly things, or profane things, or sacrilegious things.
Yeah.
Even in terms of music. All right?
Okay.
Even before there was anything called a Christian church, or whatever the case might be, we knew that there were certain songs and certain dances that were not acceptable in certain circumstances, or when we're doing certain things.
Yeah.
We knew it.
But nowadays we see a lot of these popular dances and sways in the church, and the hips are beginning to move a little bit.
Yeah. Now you see, and that's where I have a problem with these people who argue for different cultural expressions in church when it comes to music and dancing. Because what you see happening,
Yeah.
it's not culture.
As
African
in
culture,
the
as they argue,
valuable.
they say this is African culture. It's not African culture. You look at what is happening. This is not African culture. This is popular culture.
Okay.
And I can tell you right now, popular culture does not originate in Africa.
Okay.
It doesn't. Now that's where the whole silliness is. All right. So people will say we are decolonizing. People
But
say
actually
we are
what you're bringing,
and then they bring in popular culture into the church, which did not originate in Africa.
that's a Trojan horse.
A serious one, because you look at how these people dance when they are there.
Singing these
It's
African
not
songs.
African dance. It's not African dance. This is pop dance.
It doesn't belong to the sacred African culture.
You
don't do that when you do even the traditional African ceremonies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is secular. This is worldly.
Yeah.
And
It's fleshy.
It's fleshy.
Yes.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
It's eccentric. You know?
Yes.
It's anything but sacred. And the principles that we talked about earlier on,
yes,
are not against different styles of music or different cultural expressions.
We're simply saying
through music.
You're simply saying put God at the center.
And not only that, the principles are guarding the church against secularizing music and singing in the church, making singing and music worldly in the church.
I like that English. It's beautiful English. Secularizing.
Yeah, secularizing.
Secularizing.
Correct.
The sacred.
Yes.
I like that.
Yes.
Now, there's a concept that I think is also a principle universally for music, that we must not only sing with the spirit, but we must also sing with understanding.
Exactly. Exactly.
Talk to us about the Trojan horse that's stealing away the understanding.
Well, number one, you have songs that just have no meaning.
Okay.
Honestly, you have choruses that have no meaning. All right. The lyrics are repetitive.
Okay.
No theology, no message, no reflection on God, no reflection on our state in relation to God. Some choruses, by the way, begin and end without even having mentioned God or Christ or salvation. We're singing for enjoyment and entertainment in church. All right? And truth of the matter is that singing in church
Yeah.
must be God-centered.
Yes.
Must have a message. I once discussed this with a friend of mine, and we sing together, and we're discussing this whole thing. And he asked me a question. He says, "But what's wrong with, just a chorus and
a little bit of
beautiful
energy,
and the type of thing?" And I said,
movement.
Listen. I said, listen. And we were young, by the way, that time. And I said, listen here. There's a problem with a gospel song.
Okay.
Which, when it begins, the first thing
that it appeals to,
the first thing it does to you is to make you dance and not think about its message.
All right.
I think that's a problem.
The moment you hear the note, bing,
I mean, if the first thing you think about is dance in church, and you are praising God, then there's a problem. There's a serious problem. And if after singing, all you can think about is, oh, what a nice time I had.
And you don't remember what the song was about.
That becomes a problem.
Yeah.
We need to guard against that. Singing in church must be with understanding. And that simply means is we are reflecting on our relationship with God.
Okay.
And that relationship can be manifested in different themes. All right? So we can reflect on the forgiveness. We can reflect on what God has done for us. We can reflect on the second coming. We can reflect on many other themes. But at the end of the day, there must be a message. You must be able to say, this spoke to my heart. This spoke to my heart. All right? We don't just sing to be happy.
Yeah.
Honestly, you don't need church for that. Let's be very honest about it.
That's true.
If all you need is to be happy,
don't go to church.
What do you go to church for? Because you can be happy in your own house. All right? And jump around and do whatever you want to do there. But when we go to church, there's God in mind.
Yeah. And the fact that you say when we sing, it must be glorious and harmonious, meaning when all that comes together, the sacredness of that music and the power that it embodies, it will leave us in awe, and it will leave us in deep reverence for God rather than the other way around.
Of course.
Where we walk away feeling what a good time I had.
Yes.
You'll be left with such an awe feeling of what God has done. Now, there's a danger that we face that I think we should talk about. And I think you've already highlighted it. And it's almost like it's coming in as a flood into the church, worldliness, and this thing you call pop culture that we are bringing in. Some of the dances we see on stage, I don't think they are divine. I don't think they are inspired by the Spirit of God.
Lyrical repetitiveness.
Repetitiveness of the lyrics, yes.
That is reminiscent.
Yeah.
That is reminiscent of the Baal culture. And these other cultures where you just keep repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating.
And then you go into a trance.
And then you go into a trance at the end of the day. And that becomes the...
And it's buttressed by this heavy drill drum.
Exactly.
And sound.
Yes. And you see that is the goal. the goal is to deprive you of your thinking capacity.
By the time the word comes.
But yeah, you just need to be in a trance of some kind, and then you think you're actually worshiping. That is a problem. So that is worldly in that sense.
Yeah.
But also we've already spoken about the dances. But also the type of music. Now, I know earlier on, I did say that it doesn't matter what type of music,
Yes.
as long as it's sacred.
Yes.
And once you apply that principle of sacredness, then you will know that certain genres
are going to fall off.
do not apply. And we don't need to argue.
We don't
over
even need
that.
to mention which
Let
ones.
me tell you, you can never take a heavy metal rock
Yeah.
song
Yes.
by the Beatles and then just change the lyrics.
And even some of the latest dance halls.
Exactly.
I have to look at my boys.
Exactly.
The dance hall tunes cannot
you can never do
fit
that.
in sacred.
You can never do that. Take that kind of music.
I wish there was a microphone on my boys so they can comment.
Yeah. Take that music
Yes.
and then put lyrics there,
Yeah.
religious lyrics, and then you come and sing that in church. You can't do that. And then you take a dance from a movie.
Kwasa
Kwasa type of
movie,
thing.
something from Central Africa there.
Yeah. Or,
Yeah.
yeah. And then you come and do it in church, and then you say, we're worshiping. And this becomes sacred simply because you're doing it
changed
in
the word.
church. You can't do that. And honestly, I'm not under the illusion. I'm not under the illusion.
Because the
that,
impact...
that this will persuade a lot of people. And that's not the point.
Yeah.
The point is we need to call these things out.
Yeah.
If you are going to continue doing it, do it.
It's your choice.
But we can't be silent about it. You can't take a Michael Jackson song, change the lyrics, and then come and sing it in church. And then you say that's gospel.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
It just does not make sense.
Because
and you may not take a Michael Jackson song, but you may compose a song that is in the same genre.
All right.
And then you put the religious songs there.
Yes.
And then you dance like Michael Jackson in church. And then you say, as long as
it is
I'm praising
Jesus.
the Lord.
Yeah.
And God knows my heart. Look,
Yeah.
I'm not God. We are not God. And don't argue like we are God.
All right.
And God made it deliberately that we should not be God. All right? So God gave us 5 senses
Yeah.
by which we need to judge anything. So we judge by what we see,
Yes.
what we hear,
Uh-huh.
what we smell, what we taste, and what we touch.
Yes.
So don't tell us that we should judge by what we cannot be able to do. It's like people who argue about dress code,
Yeah.
who say God does not look
At the outward.
on the outside.
He looks
God
at the
looks on
heart.
the inside. I often respond and I say, we leave the heart to God. We are not God. I agree with you. God looks at on the inside. We don't see what's on the inside.
Yeah.
We are human beings.
Yeah, we leave that to God.
We see on the outside. That's what we do, and we judge by that. So somebody once said to me, well, what you dress doesn't take you to heaven or hell. I said, that is true.
Yes.
It doesn't take you to heaven or hell, but it tells us where you are going. As human beings, it tells us where you are going. We leave the heart to God.
To God.
Yes.
Now,
The same thing with music, by the way.
Yes.
So don't come with silly music here. And then you say, my heart, God knows my heart. We leave the heart to God, but we are a church. We are a community.
Yeah.
Not only are we a community, we have a standard.
Exactly. And when we sing their expectations we have, we cannot reduce the church to a dance hall.
Of course.
The church is a sacred place where we meet and everyone must
It's not a rock concert.
It's not a concert. It's a place where those who are talented are given the privilege to serve us through their voices as we join them to sing.
Yeah. But here's the problem before you move on. Here's the problem.
Yeah.
You know, the problem is that in everything we do today, God is serving us. We are not serving God. That's where the problem is. And everything we do, we are recreating God in our image. We have forgotten that God created us in His image.
And it's us who are to...
So when today in church, when we sing, when we preach, when we dress, whatever we do so that God can serve us. God must meet our needs. We are not there to serve God. That's where the problem is today. We are no longer doing theology in church. We are doing anthropology.
Understanding how we do things so that we can do them in a way we want.
We are doing anthropology. We are the center. God is no longer the center. We have dethroned God.
Yeah.
And we've put ourselves in the place of God. And that's what we're doing with music in
because
church today.
So the argument I've heard out there is that we don't know what the divine standard is. Play us the cassette so we can benchmark. But then the same people, and this is a clip I've watched out there, the same people say, we don't know what that standard means, which is divine heavenly music. Play us the cassette. But then in their proposition, they're saying, let every culture define that standard. And I'm saying, no, it cannot be. Because God did not leave us to our cultures to save us. He brought His Son, that He may die for all races, nations, kindreds, and tongues and people, because our cultures could not save us.
Yeah, but that argument, you're absolutely correct, but that argument is also silly. It's honestly very silly. If you say, give us a cassette and let's hear what they sing in heaven, and in the absence of that, then let cultures determine what they will sing. Why shouldn't the cultures themselves be judged according to the standard of the cassette that we must get from heaven? Why shouldn't? Because if you're going to say, let's sing this, which is from culture, then I can turn the coin over on its head and say, no, but does that cultural music, does it comport to a standard in heaven? Do you have a cassette
that you used to establish your culture?
To establish that culture.
Your
Do you have
culture,
a cassette?
yeah.
You see, that's point number one. But point number two, how far are you willing to carry that argument? How many things are we going to have to subject to culture? How many? How many things are we going to do that?
Yeah.
Because the question I'm going to ask you, the language in which you worship, did you have a cassette from heaven to say this is the language we need to use
when we worship?
When we worship, when we sing. Do you see how silly the argument becomes?
It can actually fall apart when you begin to apply it to many things.
Then you can't dress like this.
Did we have a cassette on what to eat?
Exactly. And that's the point I'm making. You know, you're putting your feet on a slippery slope.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
You come dressed in a particular way. The question is, did you have a video? Now that you argue for this kind of attire, did you have a video in heaven? I mean, from heaven.
Yeah.
That shows that everybody dresses in different cultures. Not only that, by the way.
Yeah.
Can you give me a verse in the Bible? Let's leave heaven. Can you give me a verse that says that?
Yeah.
That becomes a problem. Those kind of arguments, like I told you earlier on, they sound smart. But when you sit down and you analyze them, you realize that they're actually not smart.
Yeah. But also when you are leading when you're leading an institution.
Exactly.
Where there are so many diverse people. Isn't it beautiful, Mfundisi? I've traveled to the ends of the world and I've heard people say, yeah, I've been to Nigeria, I've been to whatever. They worship differently from us. In Germany, they have adopted their own hymnal. But the beauty of walking into a church in Ethiopia or in Tanzania or in America or Canada where they sing in a different language. But the moment they sing the song, I can tell which song they are singing.
Yeah.
And I join them in my own language.
Yeah.
You can't have that with this diversity we are looking for to say culture must do their own thing. We are destroying the universality of our faith.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Also in the sense that we are an organization. And I keep going back to this.
That's true.
We are an organization. And as an organization, we have a right to decide
exactly
how our liturgy is going to be. We have a right to do that. All right? And you can't question our right
to a standard.
to do that.
Yeah.
You can't. We have a standard. It's not fair. This, you know, I was at a church just this past weekend, and people were raising an issue about the types of marriages.
Okay.
All right. And I know I'm digressing now, but I think this is important. It's an important thing that I'm saying. And they were saying, no, but we're not happy with this. We're not happy with that. You know, the church saying the marriage that it only recognizes is this and that and that. And it was a hot argument. And I said, people, you know, you speak like God is limited. God is not limited. It's honestly not limited. God can save people anywhere and everywhere. God can do that. If you're not happy, if you're just not...
Are you saying the door is
happy,
open?
I did not say that. But I simply said, if you're not happy, honestly, why do you allow yourself to be a disgruntled Christian? Why do you allow yourself to be like that? All right? Don't allow yourself to be like that. It's not fair. It's trampling on your conscience. Don't allow that to happen. But the church has a right to a standard. It's an organization.
Yes.
Go to Standard Bank and try and change their culture and see how long you will last. Go there.
The moment they identify you,
just go.
They will show
there.
you the door.
Yes. Once you start saying, listen, I don't like this emblem. Why do we have this emblem? You guys have been having this emblem for the past 150 years or whatever the case might be. Say, if you don't like it, there's Net Bank next door.
Just go there.
There's Barclays next door. You can't. And I'm not saying people must leave the church. I'm not saying that. Honestly, I'm just making a point.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Adhere to the standards.
Yeah. I'm not saying people must go up. They've been brought in by God.
That's if they have been brought by God, Mfundisi, because some of them are infiltrates. They are Trojan soldiers.
And I didn't say that. You said it. And
it sounds like that's what you say.
No. Listen, it sounds like, but that's not what I'm saying. But on a more serious note, Ellen White does say that. By the way, in great controversy.
Mfundisi, I would say.
No, on a very serious note, that's what Ellen White says. Ellen White says, when God is busy saving his people and bring them to the church, the devil is at work too. Yeah. Bring his own people into the church.
I believe if the devil could attack Judas and win him and try Peter. Yeah. Peter was only saved by the prayer of Jesus.
Yeah, I know.
But he had done his damage.
I know.
To deny him and all of I believe if Jesus could have 12 disciples and 2 of them were serious object of attack. I don't think the church in this day and age would survive. And because I know Revelation says, when not Revelation, I think it's Daniel when he talks about the tours of the image of Daniel. it says, and they shall mingle, the inhabitants of the Roman kingdom shall
correct.
mingle themselves
Correct.
with nations. There is a lot of infiltration.
Look, we've got a mixed multitude.
And so we shouldn't deceive ourselves to think that everyone who sits in church, who sings in church, who preaches in church.
Yeah.
And I know I might be seeming to be raising a culture of suspicion in the church, but we've got to say these things.
No. That's a fact. Look, we've got a mixed multitude.
Yeah.
And there's no one who has enough common sense who will deny that. We have a mixed multitude. All right? Now some have a clear agenda. Clear agenda to subvert the principles of the church. Clear. But others do it despite themselves.
Okay.
They're not even aware
Okay.
that they're actually doing that.
They're like Aaron, he didn't know what he was doing.
Exactly.
He says, I just threw these elements in the fire and suddenly a calf came out as if he didn't mold it.
So without telling people to leave, and I can never tell them that. I have no right to tell them that.
Yeah, because
this
you never
is
brought
God's
them.
church.
Yeah.
I never brought him in here.
Yeah.
But truth be told, we have a mixed multitude
Yes.
in church.
Yes, I guess that's why at a leadership level, because I know you are the pastor in the church and you're leading us in one way or another, there comes a time when you say, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
Correct.
Now, I want us to wrap with your message to the churches. There are leaders who are watching this thing. We don't want to have them stand up out of this podcast and use this to bash people and say, you see, this is what the pastor said. But we want to be very clear. As much as we have discussed perspectives, we also want to teach standards and make sure that things are done in order, because God's house must be run in order. If you were to address church music leaders, let's assume we've gathered them all here, and they've given you 5 minutes or so to talk to them about music and how we should do it and how we should be careful of secularism, what would you tell them?
Well, number one, I would raise the fact that music is a very powerful instrument that God has given us. Okay, but given us so that we can use it to His glory, to glorify Him. All right, but we know that the devil can use music also against God. And he can use it also to profane, to defile our worship of God. So they need to be very careful when it comes to that. Number two, I would say to them, remember that music has a very powerful psychological impact. And that is why, for instance, when you go to the shopping malls to shop or something like that,
go to the restaurants,
there's music. And that music is so powerful that it can bypass logic and influence your behavior. The reason why they play music at shopping malls is for you to buy and spend without you being aware that you are actually doing that. Actually, studies have been made that's the main reason why they play music so softly, so that it bypasses your conscious mind and it goes to the subliminal
cognitive mind.
Correct.
Massages your thinking.
Subliminally. It's there. It influences you. One cut after another, you spending and spending and spending and spending. So music is very powerful when it comes to that. So we need to be very careful when we select our music in church and for congregational worship, and be aware that this has serious psychological impact. But not only that, music has serious spiritual impact. We must never ever undermine the demonic influences that come through music. There are a number of people who have become victims of demonic attack because of music.
The type of music they play.
The type of music. Some demons can never be prayed out at all. Never. One pastor actually says that, gives a testimony of a young boy who was demon possessed, and they prayed for him, but they could never get the demons out. Actually, they got a number of demons out, but there was one demon that could never come out until they played some soft, beautiful gospel music. And this, for whatever strange reason, weakened this boy. And when he was at his weakest, the pastor came and said, "Come out." And the demon came out. And then they asked him, and they said, but why couldn't we get this demon out after we prayed? You know, there were elders and stuff like that. It only came out so easily after we played the music. He said, this demon, you couldn't pray it out. You had to play it out because it was played in. Some demons are played in. They come in through music. So we need to be careful as a church when it comes to music, because sometimes we're bringing demons and demonic influences through music. But the last point is that I would say to them, be aware that singing in church and music in church is about God.
All right.
It's not about us. Even when it comes to music, let's remember that we are in this world, but we are not of this world. We need to be distinguished, and we need to be distinguishable as a body of Christ, and in particular as Adventists. Those would be my words.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much for those beautiful words. Trojan horsed through music. Friends, that's all we had for this episode. Look out for more in the future. We're talking about the Trojan horse, how the church is being attacked from within, and how you should be on the lookout, because not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, believes in that Lord. Some of them, when Jesus shall come, he will say, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of iniquity. So as you worship, as you sing, make sure you sing with understanding and let it be from the heart. This has been Podcast on the Go with yours, MelVee Broadcasting Network. God bless you and see you on the next one.